Poor Alpha King bought a tiny foal for 50 cents, unaware she would make him a millionaire. King Alaric, the Alpha of Eldoria, wandered alone through the cobbled streets of the old marketplace. His cloak was tattered, and his boots had dust from 100 long roads. He was young but weary, for the weight of his crown had become more a burden than a blessing. The people whispered about him, not with fear or respect but with a quiet pity. The treasury was empty, the fields had grown thin, and the enemies of Eldoria circled like wolves ready to pounce. Alaric's heart ached with a longing he could not name. He dreamed of a way to restore his kingdom, to prove that he was worthy of the title of king, but hope had become a stranger to him. As he wandered, he passed a small stall tucked into the corner of the marketplace. It was old and dusty, forgotten by most. But something about it caught his eye. There, among broken pots and tattered rugs, was a foal. Tiny, trembling, and so small she could fit into his arms, she looked up at him with eyes that seemed far older than her body. Her coat was a soft silver, speckled with white, like the moon had left its reflection on her back. Despite her weakness, there was a light in her eyes, a quiet, untamed spirit that refused to be broken. 50 cents, the old merchant croaked. His voice was hoarse as if it had not been used in years. She's sickly. No one wants her, Alaric frowned. 50 cents was nothing, almost nothing at all, yet it was all he had. His fingers itched to reach for his empty coin purse, but something in the foal's gaze held him back. It was not pity that made his heart stir. It was recognition, as if she was calling out to him, asking him to take a chance. I will take her, Alaric said, though a small, nervous voice in his mind warned him of the foolishness. He placed the coins into the merchant's hand. The old man squinted at him, then gave a crooked smile. You may not know what you hold, young king. Keep her safe. Alaric lifted the foal into his arms. She trembled but did not cry. Instead, she nuzzled his chest, as if welcoming him into her small, fragile world. He carried her back through the marketplace, ignoring the curious stares of villagers. It felt wrong that something so small could stir such hope in his weary heart, but hope, he realized, was the one thing he had almost forgotten. Back at the castle, Alaric settled the foal into the stables. The scent of hay and earth filled the room, mixing with the cold chill that had settled over the castle. He watched her carefully, amazed at how fragile she seemed and yet how alive her spirit was. I will call you Leora, he whispered. You will not be forgotten. That night Alaric could not sleep. He lay on his cold bed in the empty chambers of the castle, thinking about Leora. Her silver coat gleamed in his memory, her eyes reflecting a light that he had long believed lost. He rose quietly and walked to the stables. There she stood, tiny and still, looking up at him with those curious, unwavering eyes. Suddenly, a soft shimmer filled the air. It was barely noticeable at first, a faint glow that seemed to come from Leora herself. Alaric blinked, certain his eyes were playing tricks on him. But the glow grew, painting the stables in silver light. And then he saw it, a vision shimmering before him, as if the foal was showing him a secret. Golden towers rose high, the land lush and green, people smiling and prosperous. A river of light flowed through the kingdom, and Alaric saw himself standing tall, a crown of gold on his head, a kingdom restored. He gasped. Is this real? He whispered, touching the foal gently. Leora nuzzled his hand as if to answer yes or perhaps to say, it can be if you are brave enough. The vision faded, leaving the stables dim once more. Alaric's heart raced. Magic had returned to his life, though in such a small, unassuming form. Could this tiny foal really hold the power to change his fate? Could she bring back the light to Eldoria? The next morning, rumors began to swirl. A foal with a silver coat, fragile yet radiant, had appeared in the king's stables. Some whispered it was a gift from the gods. Others muttered dark warnings of curses and shadows. Alaric paid them no mind. He spent his days caring for Leora, feeding her, walking her through the castle gardens and speaking to her as though she could understand every word. In many ways she did. Her eyes reflected understanding and intelligence far beyond that of a normal foal. Days turned into weeks. Leora grew stronger, though still smaller than an average foal. She seemed to sense everything around her, the shifts of the wind, the emotions of people, the subtle dangers that lingered unseen. Alaric found comfort in her presence. With Leora by his side, the weight of the crown felt lighter. He began to see possibilities rather than problems. Yet, not all was peaceful. A shadow lingered beyond the castle walls. A cloaked figure watched from the forest edge, eyes glinting with curiosity and something colder. The figure spoke in a low voice, barely audible. The Alpha has chosen, but does he understand the cost? Alaric, unaware, continued to care for Leora. He began training her to walk alongside him in the courtyard. The villagers, curious and cautious, came to watch. Some laughed at the sight, a poor king with a tiny foal, nothing more than a curiosity. But others noticed something remarkable. The foal moved with grace, intelligence, and confidence, almost as if she knew the land, the people, and even the hearts of those around her. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant mountains, Alaric stood beside Leora in the quiet castle gardens. He felt a strange sense of calm, as if the foal had brought a light into his life that no treasure could buy. "You will change everything, won't you, Leora?" he asked softly. She nudged his hand and he laughed, a sound rare and long forgotten in the halls of Eldoria. But the night brought more than peace. A sudden chill swept through the castle. The torches flickered, shadows twisting against the walls. Alaric shivered, looking toward the stables where Leora had been resting. A soft silver glow filled the room again. Leora's coat shimmered under the moonlight, brighter than before. And then, as he watched in awe, her eyes reflected a vision once more. This time it was not towers or riches. It was a path, winding through forests thick with mist, rivers that glowed under the moon, and a figure standing at the end. A figure with a crown of shadows, holding a power that could challenge even the bravest king. Alaric felt a chill run down his spine. The vision faded, leaving only the quiet night. Leora stamped softly, nuzzling his hand as if to say, "Do not fear. You are not alone." He realized then that this tiny foal was more than hope. She was a guide, a companion, and perhaps the key to his kingdom's salvation. But her power, mysterious and magical, carried warnings he did not yet understand. Danger and opportunity danced hand in hand, and Alaric knew the journey ahead would not be easy. He returned to his chambers, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Leora followed him, resting her head near the door. The soft silver glow of her coat lit the room faintly, a gentle promise of the adventure to come. Alaric lay down, staring at the ceiling, imagining the kingdom restored, his people safe, and perhaps a life of purpose and courage awaiting him. As sleep approached, a voice whispered through the wind, soft yet certain, "The path is chosen, Alpha, but the shadows wait, and the test of heart has only just begun." Alaric's eyes fluttered closed, the words echoing in his mind. He held onto Leora, feeling her steady breathing, the warmth of her small body against his own. In that moment, he realized something he had not known for a long time. He had hope, and with hope, perhaps even a poor king could rise again. The castle was quiet, the night full of secrets, and somewhere beyond the walls, unseen eyes watched. The story of Alaric and the tiny foal, Leora, had only just begun, and the first steps of their journey would soon change not only their fate but the fate of all Eldoria. Cliffhanger, in the darkness of the forest, the shadowy figure smiled. "So, the Alpha has chosen the foal, but does he understand what she will demand of him?" The morning sun poured gold over the castle of Eldoria, brushing the stones with warmth. King Alaric woke to the soft sound of hooves tapping on the floor of the stables. He hurried down the corridors, his heart light with a feeling he had almost forgotten, joy. Leora, The tiny silver foal he had bought for 50 cents was already awake. Her small eyes sparkled as she watched him approach, her breath misting in the cool morning air. Alaric smiled, kneeling beside her. "Good morning, little one," he said softly. "Did you sleep well?" She nuzzled his hand, and he felt a strange connection, as if she understood every word, every emotion. Over the past weeks, their bond had deepened. Alaric fed her, trained her to walk beside him, and spoke to her of his dreams and fears. In return, Leora seemed to sense the moods of the castle, the whispers of the wind, and even the emotions of the people who visited the courtyard. The villagers began noticing. Whispers spread about the silver spirit Foal in the king's stables. Some were curious, others wary. They had seen kings rise and fall, fortunes gained and lost, but a foal that seemed to carry a light in her eyes was something they had never imagined. Alaric, however, ignored the gossip. His focus was on Leora and the quiet magic she seemed to hold. Sometimes, when she grazed in the garden, he noticed a soft shimmer around her coat, like moonlight had woven itself into her hair. It made him wonder whether the visions he had seen that night in the stables had been real or a dream. One afternoon, as Alaric was brushing Leora's coat, she lifted her head suddenly and stamped her hooves. Her ears twitched, and her eyes widened with a strange urgency. Alaric followed her gaze and saw a figure moving through the trees at the edge of the gardens. A man cloaked in shadows watched them. "Who's there?" Alaric called, stepping closer, his hand still on Leora's back. The figure did not answer. The wind shifted, carrying a low, melodic whisper. "The Alpha has chosen the foal, but he does not yet understand her power," it said before vanishing among the trees. Alaric's heart beat faster. He glanced down at Leora, whose eyes seemed calm and wise. "Do you understand?" he asked quietly. She nudged his hand, and he felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. Somehow, he believed she did. That evening, Alaric went to the castle library. He had been neglecting the dusty tomes for years, too busy with worries of debt and enemies. Now, with Leora's presence, he felt a spark of curiosity return. He searched for any mention of silver horses, magical beasts, or omens of fortune. The pages spoke of legends, of celestial foals born once in 1,000 years, foals whose arrival could change kingdoms, heal lands, or bring curses depending on the hearts of those who cared for them. Alaric's fingers trembled as he read. Could Leora be one of these legendary creatures? If she was, then the visions, the shimmer, and the strange whispers suddenly made sense. But there was also a warning. The foal brings fortune only to those who are true of heart. Greed and fear will turn her gift to shadow. He closed the book, a mixture of awe and fear swirling in him. Leora had chosen him, and if the legends were true, she would not merely make him wealthy, she would test him, shape him, and demand courage, kindness, and selflessness. The next days passed with small wonders. Leora learned quickly, walking beside Alaric in the courtyard, playing with the children of the village, and even sensing when someone approached the castle with ill intent. One evening, Alaric noticed she had followed a thief who had sneaked into the courtyard. The thief froze as if Leora's gaze had pierced through him, then fled into the night. Alaric could hardly believe it. She was more than a foal. She was a protector, a companion, and perhaps even a guide. But not all who saw her were pleased. A rival Alpha King, Lord Darien, heard whispers of the magical foal and the visions of Eldoria's rising fortune. His jealousy and ambition stirred. He would stop at nothing to claim Leora and her power. And in the dark forests beyond the castle, a sorceress, long exiled for her dark magic, also took notice. Her eyes glinted with hunger as she whispered to herself, "The foal belongs to no one, but I will have her." Alaric, unaware of these watchers, focused on building a bond with Leora. He spent hours in the stables, brushing her coat, feeding her special herbs, and talking to her about the kingdom. Each day, she seemed to grow stronger, her coat shinier, her movements more graceful. Sometimes she would look at him with such understanding that it felt as if she could see the very thoughts in his mind. One night, as the moon rose high, a strange shimmer appeared again. Alaric, unable to sleep, went to the stables. Leora's silver coat glowed under the moonlight, and her eyes reflected something extraordinary. A vision unfolded before them, a path winding through forests thick with mist, glowing rivers, and distant mountains sparkling in silver. At the end of the path stood a figure cloaked in shadow, holding a crown of darkness. Alaric stepped closer, heart pounding. The vision seemed to speak without words. To claim your fortune, you must face the trials of the heart. Courage and love will guide you. Fear and greed will destroy you. He looked at Leora, whose gaze was steady and calm. "Do you know this path?" he whispered. She stamped her hooves and nudged him gently as if to say, "Yes, and you must follow." The next morning, Alaric decided to test the foal's abilities. He led her to the fields outside the castle, where the villagers gathered. Alaric asked Leora to sense the moods of the people, and to everyone's surprise, she moved gracefully among them, stopping before those who carried heavy hearts or hidden fears. The villagers gasped in awe. Some crossed themselves, some whispered prayers, and some simply stared, amazed. Word of the foal spread quickly. Eldoria, once quiet and forgotten, began to feel alive again. Merchants returned to the streets, travelers came from distant lands, and even the rival Alpha King sent scouts to see the marvel for himself. But with attention came danger. One evening, as Alaric and Leora walked near the forest, a sudden shadow darted between the trees. A whisper floated through the wind, dark and melodic. "The path is set, Alpha, but the shadows are patient. The test has begun." Alaric tightened his grip on the reins of Leora, feeling a chill run down his spine. "Who's there?" he called, but the forest answered only with silence. Leora stamped her hooves as if warning him of something unseen. That night Alaric could not sleep. He lay in his chambers, staring at the ceiling, replaying the vision of the path and the shadowy figure. He thought of Leora and the strange, magical bond they shared. Something deep inside him stirred, a mix of fear, hope, and determination. He realized that the foal had chosen him, yes, but she had also chosen a journey that would test every part of his heart. The castle was quiet. The moonlight spilled across the corridors, touching the golden tiles with silver. Alaric rose and went to the stables one more time. Leora stood quietly, her coat shimmering faintly in the moonlight. He knelt beside her and whispered, "I do not know what lies ahead, little one. But I promise I will face it for you, for the kingdom, and for us." Leora nuzzled him gently, and Alaric felt a warmth spread through his chest, stronger than he had felt in years. In that moment, he knew she was more than a foal. She was a guide, a protector, and a friend. And together, they would face whatever trials the future held. The next morning, the first snow of the season fell over Eldoria. The kingdom, once gray and quiet, was now sprinkled with white, like a promise of new beginnings. Alaric walked through the castle gates with Leora by his side. Villagers waved, children ran ahead laughing, and the castle seemed to breathe once more. Yet beyond the forests, unseen eyes watched and whispers carried on the wind. The rival Alpha King, Lord Darien, had arrived, sending a message to Eldoria. "The foal does not belong to you, she will be mine." And from the shadows the sorceress observed, a cruel smile on her lips. "So, the Alpha has chosen, but will he survive what is coming?" Alaric did not yet know the dangers that lurked ahead. He only knew that with Leora, he had hope, courage, and a spark of magic in his heart. And the first steps of their journey were only beginning. Cliffhanger. That night, Leora's silver coat glowed brighter than ever, and Alaric saw a faint vision of a glowing path leading deep into the forbidden forest. He felt a pull, a whisper in his soul, "Follow me, but beware the shadows that wait." The forest beyond Eldoria's castle was ancient, thick with mist and mystery. Towering trees stretched high into the sky, their branches tangled like a web of secrets. Few dared enter these woods, for tales spoke of strange creatures, lost travelers, and whispers of magic that could either grant fortune or curse the unwary. King Alaric stood at the edge of the forest, Leora by his side. Her silver coat glimmered faintly in the pale morning light, and her eyes shone with intelligence and courage. The vision he had seen the night before, the glowing path through the forest and the figure cloaked in shadows, haunted him. Yet he could not ignore it. If Leora had brought him this far, if she had chosen him, then he must follow. "Are you ready, little one?" Alaric asked softly, brushing her mane. Leora stamped her hooves gently, as if answering yes. Alaric took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and determination. The forest loomed ahead, dark and mysterious, but he knew he could not turn back. The first steps into the forest were cautious. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind, the call of distant birds, seemed louder, sharper, filled with meaning. Leora walked beside him, her small hooves light on the soft earth. She led the way, confident and graceful, guiding him through narrow paths and around hidden dangers. After a while, they came upon a small clearing. At its center stood an enormous tree, older than any Alaric had ever seen. Its trunk was wide, its roots twisted like ancient serpents. Carved into the bark were symbols that glowed faintly in silver light. Leora approached the tree and lowered her head, pressing it gently against the trunk. Alaric stepped closer, his eyes wide. He could feel the energy radiating from the tree, a pulse that seemed to echo his own heartbeat. "What is this place?" he whispered. A voice answered, though no one was visible. It was soft, melodic, and filled with wisdom. "This is the tree of trials. Those who seek fortune must first face the trials of the heart. Only the pure, the brave, and the selfless may pass." Alaric's chest tightened. He had spent his life dreaming of wealth and power, but he had never thought much of courage or selflessness. Could he be the kind of king the forest demanded? Leora nuzzled his hand, reminding him that he was not alone. The first trial appeared before them. A mirror formed in the air, smooth and shimmering. Alaric saw himself reflected, but not as he truly was. The reflection was a king consumed by greed, his crown heavy with gold, his people unhappy and his heart cold. The vision of wealth and power he had always dreamed of was there, but it was empty, hollow, and frightening. Alaric stepped back, heart racing. This is not me," he whispered, but the mirror spoke. "This is the path of greed. Choose it and fortune will be yours, but your heart will be lost forever." He looked down at Leora. Her eyes were steady, full of trust. She had brought him this far, guiding him through visions and whispers. If he followed the path of greed, he would betray not only her but the hope that had returned to Eldoria. Taking a deep breath, Alaric stepped away from the mirror. The silver symbols on the tree glowed brighter, and the mirror vanished. He felt a warmth in his chest, as if the forest itself was rewarding his choice. Leora stamped her hooves happily, nudging him forward. The second trial was more challenging. A narrow bridge appeared over a chasm shrouded in mist. Beneath it, shadows twisted and whispered, tempting Alaric with voices of doubt. "You are not strong enough. You will fail. Turn back and leave the foal behind." Alaric's hands shook as he gripped the rope railing. Leora stepped beside him, steady and calm. "I will not abandon you," she seemed to say. Taking a deep breath, Alaric focused on each step, listening not to the whispers but to his own heart. One careful step after another, he crossed the bridge, keeping his gaze on the light at the far end. The shadows hissed and faded as he reached solid ground. The third trial awaited in a grove where the air shimmered with silver light. There, Alaric faced illusions of the people he loved. His childhood friends, his family, even the villagers of Eldoria appeared before him. They smiled, laughed, and called to him, but their eyes were sad and empty. "Choose us," they said. "Abandon your quest. Stay here where you are safe." Alaric's heart ached. The longing for comfort, for the familiar, was strong. But he looked down at Leora, her eyes steady and trusting. She had brought him this far, and he could not fail now. With a trembling voice he said, "I cannot stay. My path lies ahead." The illusions faded, leaving only the quiet grove and the whisper of the wind through the leaves. After the trials, the forest seemed to recognize his courage. The silver mist parted, revealing a path lined with glowing flowers and small streams that reflected the moonlight even in the day. Leora trotted ahead, leading him to a small waterfall that sparkled with hidden magic. Alaric felt a sense of peace, as if the forest itself was rewarding his bravery. But danger was never far. From the shadows beyond the trees, a figure watched. Lord Darien, the rival Alpha King, had sent scouts before him, and now he had come in person. His eyes glinted with jealousy and ambition. "So this is the Foal," he murmured, watching Leora and Alaric with a mixture of awe and greed. "And the king dares to walk the trials of the heart, foolish boy." Alaric did not see him yet. Leora stamped her hooves, sensing the presence of danger. She whinnied softly, and Alaric felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew they were not alone. As they continued along the glowing path, the forest grew darker. Shadows stretched long, twisting into strange shapes. The whispers of the forest changed, warning him of the dangers yet to come. Leora guided him skillfully, her small hooves leaving a faint trail of silver light in the mist. They reached a clearing where the moonlight shone like a silver pool. There, the final trial appeared. A massive creature, half shadow, half light, stood before them. Its eyes glowed like molten gold, and its voice echoed through the clearing. "To claim the gift you seek, you must show courage beyond fear, love beyond doubt, and sacrifice beyond desire. Are you ready, Alpha King?" Alaric swallowed hard. He looked at Leora, whose gaze was calm and unwavering. He knew that whatever happened next, he must not falter. He stepped forward, heart steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I am ready," he said firmly. The creature moved, circling them slowly. It tested him in ways he had never imagined. It whispered fears into his mind, failures, losses, doubts. But Alaric faced each one, drawing strength from his bond with Leora and the lessons of the trials he had already overcome. He felt the warmth of the forest, the trust of the foal, and the hope that had returned to him. Finally, the creature stopped. Its golden eyes softened, and the shadows around it melted into silver light. "You have passed," it said. "Your heart is true, your courage is real, and your love is unshakable." The clearing shone with brilliant light, and Alaric felt a warmth spread through his chest. Leora nuzzled him, and he realized that she had guided him, not just through the forest but through his own heart. He had faced fear, doubt, and temptation, and emerged stronger. But their trials were not yet over. As the light faded, Alaric noticed movement at the edge of the clearing. Lord Darien and the sorceress stepped forward, their eyes filled with greed and malice. "The foal belongs to us now," Darien said, his voice cold. "Step aside, King, or face the consequences." Alaric's chest tightened, but he did not move back. He knew he could not fight them with force alone. The foal's magic and the lessons of the forest had taught him that courage, love, and wisdom were stronger than any weapon. Leora stamped her hooves, a silver shimmer spreading from her coat. The air hummed with power, as if the forest itself had joined their side. The sorceress hissed, raising her hands to cast a spell, but the light from Leora and the clearing blocked her magic. "You cannot take her," Alaric said, his voice firm. "She chooses who guides her. And she has chosen me." The rival Alpha King glared, realizing that brute force would not win here. Slowly, he backed away, retreating into the shadows. The sorceress also vanished, her cruel smile fading as the light of the clearing drove her away. Alaric knelt beside Leora, brushing her mane. "We did it," he whispered. "Together we faced the trials and overcame them." Leora nuzzled him, her eyes shining with intelligence and pride. As they turned to leave the forest, the silver mist parted, revealing a path that led back to Eldoria. The kingdom's towers glimmered in the distance, and for the first time in years, Alaric felt hope as a true, steady flame in his heart. Cliffhanger, but as they stepped toward the castle, a faint shimmer appeared in the sky above Eldoria, a shadowy figure watching them from above. The voice of the forest whispered once more, "The trials have only begun, Alpha. The shadows will return, and the true test of heart is yet to come." The kingdom of Eldoria lay before King Alaric like a sleeping giant. Its towers shimmered in the golden morning light, its streets quiet but alive with the promise of change. Alaric stood at the castle gates, Leora at his side. Her silver coat gleamed like moonlight, and her eyes reflected wisdom far beyond her small form. Together they had survived the trials of the forest, faced illusions of greed and fear, and overcome shadows that sought to destroy their hope. Yet, the journey was not over. The shadowy figures, Lord Darien, the rival Alpha King, and the exiled sorceress, still lingered beyond the borders of Eldoria. Their eyes burned with ambition, and they would not rest until they had claimed Leora's power. Alaric knew that to protect the Foal, himself, and the kingdom, he must confront them, not with force alone, but with courage, wisdom, and integrity. The first challenge came swiftly. Scouts reported that Lord Darien had gathered an army at the edge of Eldoria's forests. Their intent was clear, to seize the Foal and force Alaric to surrender his kingdom. Alaric's heart tightened at the news. The army was large, well-trained, and ruthless. He could not fight them with soldiers alone. But he did have Leora, whose magic had guided him through the trials of the forest. "We will face them together," Alaric said, kneeling to stroke Leora's mane. "You have shown me courage, wisdom, and hope. Now we must show the world what those gifts can do." Leora stamped her hooves, as if understanding the weight of his words. Alaric called a council of his closest allies, loyal knights, trusted villagers, and scholars who had studied the magic of the forest. He shared his plan, not to attack the enemy directly, but to use the lessons he had learned to protect Eldoria and demonstrate that true strength lay in courage, love, and wisdom. The council listened with awe, inspired by the transformation in their king. That night, Alaric and Leora led the villagers to the castle walls. Silver light glowed from the foal's coat, and the energy of the forest seemed to follow them, wrapping the kingdom in a protective embrace. When Lord Darien's army approached at dawn, they were met not with weapons alone, but with a display of unity, courage, and strategy that none had expected. Alaric stood atop the castle walls, his heart steady. "We do not fight for greed or power," he called. "We fight for our home, for each other, and for hope," Leora neighed, and her silver coat shimmered brighter, sending a wave of light across the courtyard. The army faltered, unsure how to face a king and a foal who seemed protected by forces beyond their understanding. The rival Alpha King tried to force his way forward, but the villagers, inspired by Alaric's courage, stood firm. Leora moved among them, her small hooves leaving traces of silver light, sensing fear and calming it, giving courage where it was needed. Slowly, Lord Darien's army retreated, realizing that brute force could not overcome a kingdom united by heart, wisdom, and courage. Alaric's victory was quiet but profound. He had defended his kingdom without cruelty, without bloodshed, relying instead on the lessons the forest and Leora had taught him. The people of Eldoria celebrated, not just the safety of their land, but the growth of their king. Alaric had transformed from a desperate young ruler into a wise and beloved leader. The sorceress, watching from afar, realized that her magic alone could not challenge the strength of a heart aligned with courage and love. She vanished into the shadows, her whispers carried by the wind. "The journey is not over, King, but the heart is tested and the foal chooses well." In the weeks that followed, Eldoria flourished. Fields once barren bloomed with golden wheat. Merchants returned to the streets, bringing goods and laughter. The villagers rebuilt homes, knowing that they were protected not only by walls and soldiers, but by a king who had faced his own fears and emerged stronger. Leora became a symbol of hope and magic. People whispered of the silver foal whose presence could reveal courage, wisdom, and love in even the darkest hearts. Children followed her in the gardens, marveling at the way she moved with grace and intelligence. Scholars came from distant lands to study her, hoping to understand the magic that had guided Alaric to greatness. Alaric, however, did not see her as a tool or a spectacle. He saw Leora as a friend, a guide, and a teacher. She had shown him the true meaning of leadership, that fortune was not measured in gold or power, but in trust, courage, and love. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Alaric walked with Leora through the castle gardens. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the gentle hum of life returning to the kingdom. "You have changed everything, little one," he said softly, brushing her mane. "You have given me hope, courage, and a path to be the King Eldoria deserves." Leora stamped her hooves gently and nuzzled him, her eyes reflecting a quiet pride. But even in peace, there were lessons yet to learn. Alaric had seen the visions of the glowing path, the shadowy figure, and the trials that awaited those who sought fortune and magic. He knew that challenges would come again, that the journey of heart and courage was never truly complete. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet joy, knowing that he had grown and that Eldoria had grown with him. The golden light of dawn touched the castle towers. Alaric stood atop the highest tower, looking out over the kingdom. Leora trotted beside him, her coat shimmering in the morning sun. The villagers below waved, children cheered, and the castle seemed alive once more. The trials had forged a new bond between king, kingdom, and magical companion. Alaric felt a deep sense of gratitude. The tiny foal he had bought for 50 cents had not only guided him through danger and uncertainty, but had transformed his heart. She had shown him that leadership was not about wealth or power, but about courage, integrity, and love. In the days that followed, Eldoria prospered in ways that had once seemed impossible. Markets flourished, people were happy and secure, and the castle itself seemed lighter, as if the burden of despair had been lifted. Alaric worked tirelessly, not for gold or glory, but for the happiness of his people. He knew that the true treasure was the trust and love of those he led. Leora remained by his side, her small silver figure a constant reminder of hope, courage, and magic. At night, when the moon shone over Eldoria, her coat reflected the light in shimmering patterns, like stars dancing on earth. Alaric would often sit beside her, feeling the quiet bond between them. She had been more than a foal. She had been a guide, a teacher, and a friend. And one morning, as he watched the sun rise over the golden fields, Alaric realized something profound. The journey had changed him, but it had also prepared him for the future. The shadowy figures may return, trials may come again, but he would face them with courage, wisdom, and love. The kingdom of Eldoria would stand strong, and its king, once poor and weary, would lead with heart, guided by the lessons of a tiny silver foal who had changed everything. Cliffhanger/poetic ending. As Alaric looked toward the horizon, a faint silver shimmer appeared in the sky. Leora's coat gleamed brighter than ever. Somewhere in the distance, the voice of the forest whispered, soft and melodic, "The heart is true, the courage is real." And the journey has only just begun. The sun rose fully, casting golden light over Eldoria. Alaric smiled, feeling the warmth of hope and the promise of endless possibilities. Together with Leora, he knew they could face any shadow, any trial, and any challenge that lay ahead. The kingdom was alive again, and so was the heart of its king.